Welcome back to the Brothers War EDH. I'm Ryan, back at it again with
Hi,
Chris and Blake. Hey, Chris. How y'all doing?
God
How y'all
damn.
doing?
Man.
Truly the professional.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're doing good. Doing good.
Just trying to promote blank effects. That's all.
Blank effects. Okay, I guess we'll get into that. We'll get into that later.
Ah.
Blake, how you doing? How was your week?
I'm wonderful. Always
Good.
fun traveling.
That's awesome, man. He's a busy man. I'm
He is
glad to
busy.
have him here. You guys, this is going to be the last podcast of the year to end 2023. It's going to be a really interesting episode. But before we get into the topic, I want to ask y'all, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to please hit that like button. Share the content, you guys. We really appreciate everything that y'all do for us. And with that, let's get into this episode. Today's episode is going to be a very, it's not going to be informational. It's going to be more of a fun one to end 2023 with. And what we decided to go with today is going through the EDH subreddit and find hot takes from this year from y'all. We're just gonna do that. Just have a nice discussion about these hot takes. You know, the first one that we have today. This Reddit user Fizzering says it wasn't that recent. There was a video from the professor about how he had a hot take about Commander not being sustainable as a format to hold MTG together. I think that like a lot of people these days probably think that Commander is what's keeping Magic alive. For certain, there's a lot of product that they've been pushing out and stuff like that. Competitive, constructive formats are still very popular, and Arena is still popular. Pioneer's been popping. Pauper seems to be some support coming for Pauper. I don't think that Commander itself is holding it just by itself. I don't think that they're really leaning towards that. I think that they want to keep them all pretty much up there, holding it all together. So what do y'all think about this one?
No, I think it depends on how you look at this one. So if the take is that basically all the other formats are dying and the question is, can Commander sustain Magic by itself? I think the answer to that is kind of no, because when you look at ultimately trading card games, they're meant to kind of be one-on-one and then have a multiplayer aspect. Not really any card game is built for, 4 people and 4 people alone. And I think the challenges of finding that many people to play with and that sort of thing is ultimately why I don't think that is sustainable. And I think you're always going to have some sort of 60 card or 1v1 format that is like, quote unquote, what the sets and everything are built around, because ultimately what that would end up turning into is all the sets are only based around Commander and don't have any other, draft goes away, everything goes away, it's only Commander. I don't think that is sustainable.
I kind of agree with Blake, actually. I do think that there needs to be a lot more, or there needs to be more variance to Magic the Gathering in order for it to be sustainable. And Commander is probably pulling its weight, pulling Magic the Gathering's weight for the most part, because I think that Commander is literally the draw for Magic the Gathering for the most part. So yeah, I mean, I think there does have to be some sort of like 1v1, constructed kind of gameplay, like standard, legacy, vintage, in order to kind of keep things fresh. And to make sure that the player base isn't getting bored, but Commander addresses a lot of those issues. If you get bored, you just make a new deck that's other colors, or something that goes against your usual playstyle. So I think that there's a lot that goes into Commander, that makes it refreshing quite more often than not. So I don't know. I think that I think it has the potential to be sustainable. It's just, I don't know. I kind of agree with Blake as well. There has to be some sort of like other format other people can draw to and more people can get into.
I would say that like probably
That's definitely-
more casual players, especially newer players, they come to Magic, because they see a lot of Commander content out there, and especially with people like Post Malone, for example. A lot of people that might like Post Malone come to this game and they're, oh well, Post Malone plays Commander, and then that's what they see as like being Magic, and not the one-on-one formats, the constructed formats. I think that like as of recently, they've been trying to get back into in-person tournaments. There was kind of like a war between like a Commander and like one-on-one Magic in person, like the Pro Tours and stuff like that, because those were like really fun to watch. But definitely during like the pandemic, I think that Commander definitely just skyrocketed in popularity, and now it's staying up there, and maybe the other formats might be trying to start to come back, but honestly, I think that we do need them both. Just having Commander, it could be something, but most card games are one-on-one. So if you just had it where it's like nothing but like multiplayer, I think that you're probably excluding a big part of how card games should be doing their stuff. So
I agree.
But yeah, that's going to be the first one. The second one is going to come from Chronically Ill MTG. Cutting fast mana, combos, and tutors from most casual lists will more than likely increase the joy in playing your deck. I do like that they mention casual lists, so it's like they know that maybe their power level is going to be on the lower side. So taking out these cards, and maybe if there was like a rule 0 about potentially doing the same, one play group can be like, let's try it without these things and see how it is. Maybe they can be able to find some joy. Me personally, I like playing with power. I like fast mana. I like combos, and I like tutors. So I remember in our group we tried to do this one time, and it was all right, but eventually we kind of like came back to our roots with higher power Magic. So, but yeah, what do you think about this take?
I think it kind of depends. I would say on its own merits, it says that you will have more fun if you take fast mana and tutors out of your deck. If I'm playing in a meta where everybody else is not doing that, and I'm the only one that's done that, that's going to feel like fucking dog shit. So I think it has to be a playgroup mentality change, not a single person mentality change. Because at one of those, you're just nerfing yourself for no reason and letting everybody else play those things, and the variance is just going to end up being worse for you. Not saying that you can't win, but you're just going to lower your overall percentile. I would say in the take where you're arguing for your whole group, I would say that depends on how you like to engage with the game. If you're playing casually and that sort of thing, I actually agree with this take. I think that reducing those sort of things and reducing consistency and letting more people just have to build their engines without like doing it on turn 2 via mana crypt and that sort of thing, and playing more on curve is potential creates a different game experience. I'm not sure if it's a better one, but it's definitely a different one.
Yeah, I think this statement just alone is very subjective. I don't think that this is a one size fits all statement, because who is he to tell me what brings me joy in Magic the Gathering? You know what I'm saying?
True.
What if my joy comes from playing higher power stuff? What if my joy comes from playing low power stuff? What if my joy comes from building wacky decks that don't do anything? So, I think that it depends on context, like Blake was talking about. That's ultimately what this statement really refers to, is playing, and I'm assuming that this guy is playing more in a low-powered, casual setting where the consistency is decreased, where you're not playing the same spells over and over again. You're playing cooler, synergistic stuff, which is all fun and cool. I mean, that brings me joy too, to make bad cards really good. We as we crept up in our group with the power, that most groups go through, where they do power creep. We start off playing these like very synergistic pieces, and that's really cool. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just very subjective.
Yeah, I think probably one of the things that people get caught up in is they see the same stuff over and over again. Fast mana for me, like I don't think fast mana is like a huge
Yeah.
like that one doesn't really fall into this, but I can see how someone can be like, okay, well, if I took out a combo that wins all the time, and my deck probably uses the same tutors to find said combo, and it does the same thing, it kind of like doesn't create the variance that they probably wanted. But that's why, like, if you're playing in lower power, then it's probably fine doing that if that's what you want to do. But obviously, as you go into the higher power, especially CDH, you're playing the win, so variance doesn't matter. It's like, whatever gets you the win with your deck. So I think people kind of like take those two things and they're like, okay, well, I'm seeing the same stuff, but it's like, it matters more seeing the same stuff because you want consistency in like higher power. So in lower power, it's like, sure, you can take this out and you're probably fine. So the next one is kind of like piggybacks off the last one. This is from Reddit user Liquid Amber, and they said, do tutors defeat the purpose of playing a singleton format? So I guess they're like their take on this is that yes, it does, but they're proposing it as a question.
Do tutors what?
Do tutors defeat the purpose of playing a singleton format? So playing a 100 card format, does it defeat the purpose of it?
100%. I've always argued this, but it's just something we're never going to get away from. But if this format was built as a singleton, the idea is that you're supposed to reduce the amount of consistency you're seeing cards, and tutors are actively second copies of those cards, and tutor effects, even like, the creatures that let you tutor, entomb, gamble, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They break parity on the fact that everybody only has one copy of them. Those cards can become copies of anything. So to answer their question, yes, I 100% think that is a true statement, that it is against the spirit of the format. But
is that what he was saying?
I thought he was just spirit. No.
I thought he just said, does it affect the format? Which, well, it does. It affects the format.
No, the question is that, like, do you think that those should be in the format? And I think ultimately it's a hard, because the format is built singleton. So tutors should not. Tutors break the fact that they're quote unquote singleton, because you can go and get any card. Mm-hmm. So I mean, this is a hard one to say, but technically, I think the argument is, from a fundamental standpoint, yes. Tutors break the fact that this is a singleton format.
Probably a better question is, do tutors make EDH boring? Because they mentioned that they say, isn't this just boring? Why are tutors so popular in non-CDH? Like
non-CDH? Oh, that's a good question.
Well, non-CDH.
I'm actually cool with taking tutors out of non-CDH if that's like a thing. The problem is, like what Blake said, if you take tutors out, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get away from it. Someone else is going to run them, and you're severely, at a disadvantage.
The other problem is, if you got the rules committee to ban tutors, then what do you ban? Obviously, demonic and enlightened and that sort of thing. Those are easy tutors. But what about like creature tutors, like Runescar Demon, that 6-man enter the battlefield tutor? Yep. You could argue that needs to go. Like, where do you draw the line?
Diabolic tutor.
I think you have to draw the. I think you have to. The line you have to draw is anything that says search your library.
Exactly. So fetch lands are gone.
Right.
Ramp is gone.
Right.
Like that's the question. Like, do you really want to go down that route and end up banning 300 cards?
I mean, hey, I think it'd be an interesting thought experiment for sure. Like,
maybe
it would definitely change the game, like 100%. I would be interesting to see how crazy different Commander would be if you just took out every card that said search your library.
It'd definitely be interesting, but
do you think that maybe the ones that are like
all of them have to go.
2 mana or less?
No, all of them have to go.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do this, you have to do it for all of them.
Because the thing is, it doesn't matter if you ban the 2 or less ones. The best ones are still going to be 3 mana, like the Grim Tutors. That's going to be premium, and you're going to see those all the time. So, like,
It's the same argument about fast mana. If you
Yeah.
only ban Soul Ring and Mana Crypt, which because there are the two that everybody looks at, then you're going to see a lot more Mox Opals. You're going to see a lot more Mox Amber. You're going to see a lot more Mox Opal. That's sort of Mox Diamond. Because those are still fast mana. They're just not as good.
Yeah. This
And
goes back to.
I think you could start by banning all of them. And you could try to sprinkle some in over time, but I think that that's just such a long, tedious process. You don't want to go down that hole. Or you could just say, hey, only one card. You're only allowed one card that says search your library.
Just one tutor per deck.
Yeah, one tutor per deck.
Change the rules of like deck building more than just getting rid of the cards in general. That's interesting.
I don't know. Again, there's no way that this ever works, but
Right.
my personal opinion on the matter. What you should be doing is what Canadian Highlander does, is you should have a point system, and all cards are given a point value, and tutors would be given some sort of point value that is higher than just regular standard cards, which means that you are giving up an opportunity cost to run them. And again, that argument is the same with fast mana. That argument is the same with everything. If you really want like a truly balanced, quote unquote, balanced format, and you assign power value to cards, that limits what people can do. They can't just put everything good in their deck and hope for the best, because your point limit would limit what they could put in their deck. That's how you would really do this, but that is such an unfeasible request on how many on like what is going on in the format. You would have to assign that value to every single card that's ever existed ever. And continue to update it as new combos come out, because now this card's value has gone up. It's literally an impossible task, basically.
Yeah.
Or it would have to be like a team's full-time job to sit there and do that, and ain't nobody doing that.
So this next one is from Reddit user Cynoid. Sorry. My hot take: this game would be a lot more fun if people stopped taking every loss so personally. I could write a book about it, and no one wants that. Essentially, my point is this: not every concession should sound like you are bitter and wasted hours of your life. People often concede from not being able to play the game. It can be from land screw, flood, extra turn cards, stacks, aggro combo, etc. Just say good game and move on. Maybe even put some outs like mass removal in your deck, so you have a chance against the same board state next time. Maybe play something stronger next time. I feel like more and more people act disgusted with the board state as they come up with some reason why they are mad and just leave.
Yeah.
In the end, it's just a game. It's not worth it to take losses personally when you can just say GG and move on to the next game.
I like this guy.
100% agree.
I like this guy. Hey, I 100% agree, and then I would add on to it and be like, hey, if you wanted to have a conversation later on after the game, have the conversation. This guy sounds like someone who'd be willing to engage in conversation and talk about that experience. So yeah, I mean, we talk about a lot how you need to kind of rewind and look at kind of like what you did in the game and how you can be better. And again, it's just a game. Don't take it so personal. It's not like they came in the game wanting to make you feel bad. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are some people who do that. However, you don't have to play with those people again. If this is a play group that you're in, again, like he said, make adjustments. If it gets bad enough to where they're they're having a power creep that's well over what your expectation is, have a conversation about it. We're all grown. You know what I mean? Act like it.
Yeah. When I was reading off some of these where it says, they said people often concede from not being able to play the game.
Quitters.
I've seen a couple of times where people they're not drawing lands and they're like, I'm out of the game, so I'm just going to concede. And they're like salty and mad about it. That's nothing to do with like everyone else at the table rather than just your deck. So I don't really see why people would really get mad. The ones that are a little more on the I can see it, obviously like stacks. Personally, I don't see why people get mad at stacks, because if you're playing stacks, yeah, you could have someone playing stacks and like those lower, but instead of being salty and concede and being a baby about it, just be like, hey, like the game ends, be like, I noticed you're playing some stacks, and I was wondering why you're playing that in our lower power tables. Like, maybe could you play something else? And that's it. And that's it. And then if they say no, then you can just not play with them. Like I just said, just be an adult about all of it and just move on. Yeah, that's gonna be that one right there. Let's move on to our next one. This one's a pretty spicy one, and it's probably not going to get a lot of good feedback from this. So this is from Reddit user Ebony Helicoida Rhino. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hot take: breaking deals needs to be normalized and accepted. I think this is a terrible take. I mean, honestly, like, I don't see why. Well, if you want to hear about deals, we talked about it's sizzling. Well, actually, no, this is like burnt to a crisp because holy cow!
I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Like, I don't see why someone would just be like, yeah, I'm gonna make a deal with you, and then just break it, and then they're like, yeah, you broke a deal, yeah, sure,
that's the hottest take I've ever heard, actually.
I mean, from looking at its merits just by itself. So, if you're only trying to win the game and making a deal gets you gets you a benefit up front, and then breaking the deal, I don't disagree that that's going to help you win the game. My problem with that becomes what happens when you play with this person the next game. They will, unlikely to ever make a deal with you again. So you have made a short-term gain for a long-term loss. So in that scenario, that is only good if you're never playing with this person again. So if I'm at a CEDH tournament and somebody takes my deal and it's good for me to break it, I actually am on board with that take personally.
Let me read the first thing that they said right here, because I think that this is pretty interesting. They say, why does in every single other board game that deception, manipulation, and betrayal are expected, but in Commander, you're the worst person ever if you break a deal? No one will think you're an a-hole if you say you have a pair of if you say you have a pair of ace in a poker game, or if you say you're a villager in werewolf or like mafia or something like that. I don't think that like these two these two don't.
You're supposed to be deceptive in those games.
Right. That's like an actual objective for like one of the roles. Obviously, in like poker, that's more of like a bluff. But I would say that in like Commander, deals is like you're just straight up just lying. You know what I mean? You're just like yeah, I'll do this, and then you break it. But it's like what Blake said. Is it going to work out for you later on? Because no one's going to take your deals later on because you're just breaking deals all the time. But if you were someone that was like, in this moment, if it could help me get in advantage, it could help you in the game, but from like a social aspect, it's kind of cringe. That's just me. And that's why this take is just so bizarre.
I think for like single play, I actually am kind of on board with this take personally.
You would.
Like I said, there's no downside because I'm never going to play with these people again. Now, if I'm in my personal play group, there ain't no way I'm going to do it unless it's like a very specific scenario, and I would probably like have a conversation before I broke that deal as well.
Yeah.
So, but I think from a pure like looking at it in the sense of like, a bluff game or, poker or something like that, I actually don't disagree with the thought process here.
That makes sense because it's like you're actually getting advantage because that mindset is pretty much, it's not only accepted, but it's also expected because, everyone is trying to do it, right? Like everyone is like, okay, well, if I can bluff on this, then like every player is going to be doing that in those kinds of games. But
yeah,
and I mean there is some argument to that in the sense of if I'm I need to take that into consideration. If I make a deal with Chris and he reneges on it, that's a risk that I took. He made that decision, yes, but I also took that risk that I made a deal with him that he was able to renege on later. That would what that theoretically incentivizes is in your deals you either get the benefit immediately, so there's nothing to renege on later, or they have to do the thing before you do the thing, and then so I think that actually brings up a very interesting point that would be very frowned upon to talk about, but the more you talk about it, makes a little more sense personally.
Maybe if there was like some like social, like a social contract like thing where it's like you go into the game and then if you were to break the deal, it's because you thought that it would actually be more beneficial for you, because sometimes breaking deals might not even work out for you. But maybe if it was like, it's not based on your character as a person, but like in the moment in the game, doing it is an optimal thing for one to do. And then when the game ends, you go back into like another one, and then instead of being like, oh well, this person's just a liar, they're gonna break all their deals, maybe they make another deal and they stick to it because it's actually optimal for them in that time. So maybe there could be like a mindset switch to this.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that really got me and made me start thinking about it is, so if you would have asked me this question like just again without all the context, I would have immediately said no, that's probably bad, because it's gonna everyone's gonna think less of you, because in that scenario what I'm gonna think of is if someone broke the deal with me, I'm not only am I not gonna make deals with them, but I'm not gonna want to play with them again, and that's such a weird. Thinking about that's such a funny way to think about it, because if I'm playing another game where it's a little more normalized to lie, like if we're fucking playing Go Fish or something and Chris lies that he doesn't have, some or like says that he's like not close to winning or something like that, or we're playing like sorry or something like that, and somebody does something to it that affects me, it bothers me in the game, but the second we're out of the game, I don't think of less of him as a person or something like that. But you would be an argument for me thinking you're a horrible person if you break a deal in Commander before me just sitting here and thinking about it. So I think that's an interesting way how they're both games, but I think about it completely differently because it's so unnormalized in our game, in our format. I think that's interesting.
We haven't brought this up, but this is the perfect, because it's like in the game, but Citadel, the five player, where if someone lies about their role, that's just part of the game. And I've been bamboozled a million times by people, and it's like, yeah, like, it's a part of this game mode in particular, where you have deception, you have trickery, you have the tomfoolery, all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like that's just part of the game. So in there, like, yeah, you can lie to me about doing something because your role would benefit from my being gullible or like whatever. So I think that would be
even in the same context like that. It makes sense, because if I'm the knight, or sorry, in this scenario, I'd want to be the assassin. But if I'm the assassin and you're my king and you're the king, I'm obviously incentivized to kill you. But there could be a deal that I would make at the beginning of the game that says, "Oh, I won't attack you because I'm obviously your knight." Yada yada yada. And there's some understood thing that I'm doing that. But eventually, once all the bandits are dead and it's just like, or potentially the knight as well, and it's just me and the king, I'm obviously reneging on that deal. And that person has, you're not gonna think twice about that. You're like, fuck, you bamboozled me. But it's not like, oh, you've gone back on your deal. No, it's completely different, because that's the expectation of the game. I just think that's
right. Exactly. If y'all want to hear a discussion on Citadel, we played a lot of Citadel and have had some really fun times playing it. Me personally, I'm one of the people in Citadel where I'm not trying to bamboozle. I'm trying to just do my role. So if I were to reveal myself first, to me, that gets the game going, and people are not sandbagging their sub. But that's the story for another day. But if you want to hear about some Citadel content, let us know. I think that would be really fun. All right, moving on to our next one. This one is similar to the last one. It's pretty burnt to a crisp, but at the same time, it's like I'm not really sure why you put it in the skill in the first place. This take is from Gustavo Nuncho. Hot take: Skyshroud Claim is a better staple than Smothering Tithe. They're not really in the same realm. If you say that they're both ramp, then maybe, but also too, and in terms of like staple, because I guess your definition of staple is like, should I put this in like every deck that I can? But then you put them against each other, and they're serving kind of like two purposes, because Tithe has a lot more purposes than Skyshroud Claim. So maybe they're like, more times than not, I'm looking to put a Skyshroud Claim in my green deck than I am Tithe in my white deck, which I don't think would ever be the case, because Tithe, especially in those decks that are a little color for white, like Tithe's just an insane card. Like let's be real. But Gustavo, man, like I'm curious, and they actually have a pretty lengthy discussion on this. Do y'all want me to go through it?
I mean, if it gives more context to the statement.
I don't really think I care what their conversation is. I think this is a dog shit take.
Yeah, sure.
From the very beginning of it, first off, they're hard to compare because they're completely different. Skyshroud Claim is ramping you 2 lands. Tithe is potentially making you a treasure on everybody's draw step and any other additional draws. That in of itself, depending on, and especially knowing how many people actually pay for Tithe, which is not very many, I think Tithe is making you more mana than just the 2 lands. And not only that, Tithe can be used as like even win conditions or like different abilities for different decks. Because if you're in like red white, make artifacts and deal damage off of those effects with like Aether Grid and that sort of thing, like that is like in and of itself like damage / win condition card for you. I think it's like a horrendous comparison that should not be made.
Yeah,
because they're different cards.
Yeah, I'm gonna read just this last part from this thing right here. It says, mana is always good because it enables you to take more game actions the same way card draw can. For this reason of it making any mana at all, I would assume it gained stable status. I'm assuming that they're talking about Tithe. Claim has synergies that are less potent than Tithe, but still easily apparent. Though each card is used simply as ramp, I'll take Claim in 100% of green inclusive decks, which, this is what we just talked about, how pretty much Claim in green exclusive decks, like it makes sense, but it doesn't mean that it's a staple more than like Tithe is, because Tithe just does so much more. There's more application. So it's a weird take.
Yeah.
He can have his fucking Skyshroud Claim, and I'll take the Tithe. How about that?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give my opponents the decision to pay 2 for their draw, and me get mana off of it as a suggestive stacks piece over 2 basic lands or 2 forests that come into play.
Do y'all think that this would have been a better take if they said something like Nature's Lore or 3 Visits? Because Skyshroud is 4 mana. Yeah, I mean, maybe they were like comparing the fact that they're both 4 mana.
I think they're just not. Those are like, yes, you can. Yes, you can consider like Tithe is ramp, but it's different. It's not it's like explosive ramp. It's ramp that doesn't stick around forever, that you have to use, but can potentially generate an insane amount more mana than any of those cards ever could. So I just don't think they're the same. Listen
to this last statement right here. It says, I don't think the normal ceiling of Tithe being a permanent has real merit compared to a permanent 2 mana per turn by Claim.
What they're saying is you're always going to have the 2 lands for the rest of the game, and Smothering Tithe is not guaranteed to get you at least 2 treasures every turn, like Skyshroud Claim will for the subsequent turns. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
Which,
just,
I mean, I completely disagree with too. But
I was gonna say this is such a fucking doggy take. Can we stop talking about it?
Yeah, please.
Jesus.
Move on.
He just wanted to talk.
yeah. He was like, "How could I stir some up in this?" All right, moving on to this is going to be our last take of the night, boys. So it is from Reddit user ZPensy99.
The name Z.
The name Z. This one is this one's kind of spicy, and not like insanely spicy like the last one, but it's kind of. Pubstompers are not that problematic. You are just bad at politicking and threat assessment. So obviously a Pubstomper wrote this, obviously, because they're going into the game probably not doing a rule 0 talk, and they're like, I'm just gonna come into this, and y'all are just not you're not communicating enough. Your threat assessment is just bad. You're not working together to try to beat me. I'm not the problem. Y'all are the problem. That's what they're saying right here. And I do want to read this one part that they said right here. It says, people playing high-powered decks against a lower-powered table know what they're doing. Everyone targeting them should be the expectation. I don't care much about talking before the game. Talk during the game. And team up on the threat as early as you can. If you're playing precons and someone puts down a mana crypt or a food chain, that means they are probably playing a higher powered deck. Let the rest of the table know and take them out. Yeah, Pubstomper is trying to put the responsibility on everyone else. And they don't want to have, they just said that they don't want to have those Rule Zero talks, those pregame talks. Just try to figure it out.
I do definitely agree that this sounds like someone who just wants to pub stomp people. But to give some amount of merit to this conversation, I think it kind of depends. So if you're looking at some of the CDH decks, like Blue Farm or something that's winning on turn 3 with basically an uninteractable combo outside of having free counterspells and that sort of thing, then I think their take is absolute dog shit. If you're talking about something a little more casual in the sense bringing an 8 to a pot of 5s, I think that could be overcame because that person probably isn't winning immediately with some interactable combo. They just have higher power cards and could potentially be interacted with by the table and be set back. But ultimately, this just sounds like somebody who doesn't want to answer for their own actions of playing a pub stomp and getting people upset because they're winning the game without ever being interacted because they're playing at a table that can't facilitate that kind of power.
They probably are in the camp where it's if I have a Thoracle and I'm going against precons, y'all should be able to stop my my Thoracle win.
Right, it's that I think is a doggy take, because if you're demonic consultationing Thoracle in a group full of precons, you're a bad person. So think of it in this scenario. That would be like coming into a poker game with a pair of aces up your sleeve or something like that. It's just not. You're not starting from a fair ground because your deck is specifically built to do something different. Whereas you could almost argue it as a form of cheating because they have access to less tools. Or for example, you're playing Sorry with a 20-sided die and everybody else is playing with 6-sided. It's just your initial conditions are completely different from theirs, and it's not necessarily a fair starting point. Is there a potential for them to win? You could roll natural ones on that D20 the entire game and lose, but that is very unlikely and statistically not relevant situation to talk about. So I think that's how you have to think about that scenario.
We had a conversation about this recently in one of our episodes where we encourage everyone to have those Rule Zero conversations, those talks, the pregame talks, because it's going to make your experience in particular a lot better. A lot of the times people just, they might just go into games like this person and probably just don't really care about the other players. They just want to win, but you can say whatever experience brings you joy is the best experience. But, really good games are ones that are, the expectations are there, and everything is laid out before the game so that you know what's going to be coming and you're not blindsided by something random. Maybe by some strong combo or maybe some cards that you don't like. You know exactly what you're getting into. So yeah, just like what we said before. Just be better. Just talk. Just make friends and just have those conversations. So. With that being said, that is going to conclude the hot takes for 2023. Hopefully, in 2024, there will be some other spicy ones. If you have any hot takes that you would like us to talk about, please leave them in the comments below. I just want to take a moment to shout out our patrons once again. The Ragtag group. We're still here. We're still in the cut. Brian Chambers, Jay Giggs, Drew Garth. We're still here. Y'all are still here. We're fighting the battle. We're fighting the war. In 2023, y'all have been extraordinary, as always.
Yes.
once again, if you want to connect with us, we'll have a link to our Discord in the description as well. Once again, this is the last podcast of the year. I just want to thank everyone for a great year. Hopefully by the time this video is released, we're monetized, and we couldn't have done it without y'all. Once again, we've been working very hard to get where we're at, and we feel like that we've hit a stride, and we're going to keep on going along with it. So just thank you just for all your love and support.
Thank you.
We hope y'all have a wonderful holiday season, and we will see y'all later.